Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the virtual service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. I am Carrie Graff, and I am co-hosting, rather, I am the worship assistant person along with Pat today. But this is my first time doing it on Zoom, so I don't know what I'm doing. So you'll have to be forgiving today as we try some new things. So we are thrilled to have you all with us today. Hopefully everybody made it on okay. This is our summer services, so we have lay speakers for the most part over the summer, and today's speaker is Nancy Reed, our very own, who's been with the church for quite a while now and is my good friend, so I'm very interested in hearing what she has to say. We do not have any announcements today, which is incredibly rare, but we are now going to enter a space of worship.
We're going to light our chalice. If you have a chalice at home or a candle and you'd like to light them, please feel free, and you can join in the words. We'll gather this hour of people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. I'm going to do the opening words this morning. I think I'm going along with Nancy's theme, which has us looking at grandparents. I am a grandmother. I'm also a mother, and I'm a sister. And those are all important roles to me, and I really enjoy those roles. It's interesting because I guess I'm no longer a daughter because both of my parents are dead, and I'm no longer a wife, another role that I had for more than 55 years. But those roles are not really gone because I replay those roles in my memory. I like to think about the day that, all of the days that my dad would put me on his lap and read me books. And when I got too big for lap sitting, he sat around the table or we sat together on a couch and he read me books. And he did that almost every day. And then he'd give me good advice after he finished reading books to me. Or I can remember that my mom used to share gardening with me. She said she liked gardening. I think she liked the vegetable garden, but I don't think she particularly liked the flower garden. So that was really neat because she set up the small space that was a flower garden and told me it was mine and I should take care of the flowers and I could do whatever I wanted. And so I developed very early a love of gardening. And then I think about Dwight as my husband for several years. And what I remember most about Dwight is that whenever I started to flounder, sometimes I do, Dwight would step up and give me the encouragement I needed to go ahead and straighten things out and get things working. So roles are important, but the one role I really love is the grandmother role. Even though my granddaughter is now a little early becoming a preteen, which means things come out of her mouth that before she thinks. And sometimes when you ask her to do something, she chooses not to do it. Things that never used to happen when she was 6, 7, 8, but they do now. But like I told her the other day, no matter what she says or what she does, she's still my granddaughter and she's still the love of my life. So, grandparents, it's an interesting role. Now we're going to go to our first hymn, which is number 168, One More Step. And we're going to do it on a video. So I'm going to go out and share a screen.
One more step. We will take one more step. Till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step. One more word. We will say one more word. Till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer. We will say one more prayer. Till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song. We will sing one more song. Till every song is sung. We'll sing one more song.
I'm Nancy, and I'm going to tell the story for all ages today. Now, I don't have a picture book today, so you of all ages are going to have to try to imagine the characters in this story as I tell it to you. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, good. Now, once there was a town, by the way, this is written by Naomi King, who you may know as Stephen King's daughter. Ought to be a good storyteller, don't you think? Once there was a town on the edge of a swamp of a sultry summer weather of far South Florida, between the alligators and the ocean. In this town, there were two amazing friends, Sam and Joe. Now, I don't know if Sam was short for Samuel or Samantha, and I don't know if Joe was short for Josephine or Joseph. So you imagine them the way you want them to be. I do know Sam and Joe were best friends. They were a lot alike. They liked the same foods. They liked the same music. They liked the same books. They even liked the same class in school. They liked math, if you can believe that. But 2 weeks into summer vacation, Sam and Joe were bored. Bored. They were bored for breakfast. They were bored for lunch. And they were bored in between. They were bored with books and bored with music and bored with movies and even bored with television and the internet. And most definitely, they were bored with each other. I'm bored, Sam said. I'm bored too, Joe said. Why am I here with you, Sam said. You're so boring. Why am I here with you, Joe asked. You're so boring. But they were too bored even to move apart from each other. So they grabbed some chips and they grabbed some fizzy drink and they lay down on the floor, too bored to even open the food. Well, then Joe's father's car pulled up, and quick as a flash, the door was open, and Joe's father shouted out quickly, "Hi, kids, gotta run, but just dropping off Grandpa Jeff, or maybe it's Grandpa Jerry, one of the J grandpas. Gotta go, see you later. Have fun, y'all, bye." By the time these words had even made it to Sam and Joe's ears, Joe's father's car was pulling out of the driveway, And Grandpa Jeff, or maybe it was Grandpa Jerry, was sitting on his suitcase with his cane, blinking a little and cleaning his glasses with his handkerchief. Well, this was something new. Sam and Joe got up and went to investigate this new J Grandpa. And they poked him and they prodded him. At first, Grandpa J didn't even seem to notice them. Finally, Grandpa J said, "Ouch, oh, hi. I didn't hear you. My hearing's not so good anymore, you know. Allow me to introduce myself." Grandpa J introduced himself, and Sam introduced Joe, and Joe introduced Sam, and then they stood there looking at each other. And then finally, Grandpa J said, "So it's summertime. What are you doing for fun?" Sam and Joe just looked at one another. Fun? We had fun, but now it's gone. Now we're just bored. Boards? Boards? Said Grandpa J. Yes, you should probably get some boards. Also some hammers and some nails and some paint. Come on, let's go find what we need. A brief while later, they were hammering boards together and painting. They asked Grandpa J what they should paint. He shrugged his shoulders and said, "I don't know what you should paint. You have colors and patterns and ideas of your own. Show them to the world." They did. And as they did, Joe and Sam realized they were not bored. They were excited. I guess we can just try to imagine what they put together with all those boards and paint. That evening, they made sandwiches and laughed and talked with Grandpa J about heroes and movies and action figures. "Grandpa J, we love adventures. Tell us some of yours," they said. And so Grandpa J did. He told about fixing engines and splitting wood, about wandering lost in the desert once, and of meeting his true love. Joe and Sam hoped their lives might be as exciting as Grandpa J's was. At the end of the day, they thanked Grandpa J for all these grand adventures. But he said to them, "I want you to know that every person has gifts and ideas and stories. Every person has adventures. Some know how to tell them, and some have a special gift of coaxing them out of others. But an adventure is always within your power." The friends went to sleep that night, having stored these words somewhere, but dreaming of the adventures they had told and heard. The next day, Sam and Joe asked Grandpa what they should do with what they built. What do you think we should do? So they thought and they talked, and then they set up a lemonade stand. And one by one, kids came by to stand there and talk and buy lemonade. And then the utility crew working on the electric lines stopped at lunch and bought lemonade and talked about their kids and when they had lemonade stands. And so it went. The weekend zipped by. It was time for Grandpa J to leave. He took their hands in his to shake goodbye. Sam and Joe said, "Oh, thank you, Grandpa J. And come back again. We hated being bored, and you fixed that." But Grandpa J put down their hands and looked at them. He said, "I've learned that boredom is a choice. You each have gifts and ideas. So did all those people you met. You each have stories. So did all those people you met. The beginning of an adventure is always within your power. When I came here, I had forgotten that, and you reminded me. Thank you."
It is now time for joys and sorrows. We are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and in our pain. Please share your joys and sorrows in the chat box on Zoom, in the comment section if you're with us on YouTube. Whatever your heart is holding today, know that we are all with you. And now it's time for the offering. This church is sustained, and the good work it does is also sustained by our contributions to the church. And we also have a designated service partner each month, although I do not know who that is this month. And we donate our collection plate to our designated service partner each month as well. So the information on how to give to the church is in the chat box. Pat's set up there. So if you'd like to send something in, that would be great. And now we're going to enter a time of centering and shared silence.
Before our minute of shared silence, I'd ask you during that time to maybe imagine that you are with one of your grandparents, and that grandparent is holding your hand. And now we'll have some shared silence.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Okay, here's my story. In our story, Grandpa Jay told the boys that each of us has our own stories, that they would have their own, and that each day is the beginning of a new adventure. Theirs were ahead of them. But we of the age of Grandpa Jay have most of our adventures behind us. We can marvel at them and, looking back, put them together into the story of what made us what we are. We grandmas and grandpas have that advantage. We have had our adventures and maybe have some wisdom to share. My plan is to tell you my life stories from near the beginning to near the end, like a path, but not a very straight path. My path took some unexpected turns. There were roadblocks that I couldn't see past. But with time and the help and love of the people around me, new paths opened up. I learned things about myself I wouldn't have learned if my path had been what I expected it to be. I learned that I didn't have to get through the difficult times alone. I learned about strengths I didn't know I had. And I learned about how privileged I was too, as I had a chance to hear other people's stories. If you will bear with me, here is 75 years condensed into about 10 minutes. Because of my dad's job for the Navy, we moved a few times as I was growing up, but lived for the most part in Alexandria, Virginia. We were a middle-class white family. My mom stayed home. My dad worked quietly on a team of mostly men, doing research for the Navy. And I grew up without a goal in mind about what I wanted to do. No dream particularly, just some assumptions of going to college and getting married and happily ever after. that pretty much came true for a while. I went to a small college, majored in English, which seemed as good as anything, and decided to try teaching. Maybe my first unexpected adventure came when the college decided to arrange for its student teachers to live and work in downtown Cleveland. This was the first time in decades that student teaching hadn't been done near campus in rural Meadville, Pennsylvania. So off we went, senior year, to teach in the inner city for 10 weeks. Several faculty were with us, but they had yet to learn how to prepare us for this different culture. We learned on the job. And after I graduated, I went back to the same junior high for 3 years. I know I learned a lot more than I taught. I learned what it feels like to be the minority, to be the outsider. During that time, Martin Luther King was assassinated. I knew who he was, of course, but I was overwhelmed with the emotion around me that I felt that day in school. And I couldn't begin to help my students with what they were feeling. As the racial tensions built up that spring, a couple of my bigger students decided they ought to walk me to my car in the parking lot after school every day. The riots that summer did damage to the neighborhood where my students live, but it didn't touch my white suburb of Euclid. The next adventure was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I had gotten married to my college boyfriend a year after we graduated, and by the time he finished grad school, I was pregnant. We moved to his hometown outside Pittsburgh, living in a nice little borough on a hillside, and had 3 children in 5 years. What came next for our young family, though, was needing to learn about cancer and loss when Jim died at 33 of lung cancer. It happened fast. My kids were 7, 5, and 2, and life had to go on, and it did. Shortly after Jim died, a friend suggested to me a job as administrative assistant for the training program she was part of at the University of Pittsburgh Hospital Complex. So that began for me 15 years of working in an academic medical setting. I was the only office staff for a group of psychiatrists in training to consult with patients who were in the big medical hospital. So many stories of illness, but also of healing. Such a new world for me to be among these bright, young, sometimes slightly crazy psychiatry residents. I learned, as most working moms do, to try to focus all my attention on work problems when I was at work, and all of my attention on family when I was home. This was possible because our small town neighborhood of Thornburg helped me raise my kids. The neighborhood moms kept an eye on them. The neighborhood dads did some daddy things with them. And the slightly older kids on the street were the babysitters. Our village gave us love. I was a single mom for 10 years, then a new marriage to Dave Reed, who came with 5 kids of his own. They weren't really kids. They were in their 20s by then, and a couple of them were married, and there were 2 grandbabies even. And Dave and I had new adventures. I went with him on a trip to look at medical systems in the USSR, and we managed to be there when Chernobyl blew up. We found out about it along with the rest of the Russians in Moscow 3 days after the rest of the world knew. We took a 3-month semester at sea when Dave served as the ship's doctor, and I got to go along for the ride. 3 months with 500 undergraduate college students, taking classes, spending 3 or 4 days exploring 10 different ports, and sharing so many adventures with each other as we got back on the ship. By the way, Carrie Graff was there for part of that too. And then our New York adventure. All 8 of our kids had moved away from Pittsburgh. So when Dave retired in 1998, we decided to move to Canandaigua near where he grew up. Too soon, my Canandaigua story included loss again. Dave became ill with pancreatic cancer in 1999. I was so glad we were here because it was where he wanted to be. When he died in 2000, I felt quite alone. A few months later, I found this church, and it has been family to me. You have been family to me. And a few years later, my daughter Becky and her family moved here from Florida and stayed, for which I will be ever grateful. The past 20 years in Canandaigua and the people I've met here have offered me so many opportunities. A chance to teach again with literacy volunteers, to travel, to walk across Spain with a friend I met here at church, to watch 3 of my grandchildren grow up and blossom here, to do hospice work and again hear stories of illness and healing, not recovering, but healing, and to be part of the UUCC family, learning your stories, especially those of the friends in our Soul Matters group. For almost 10 years now, I've also had the new love and companionship of Bob Gordon for this part of my story. At 75, I can look back and see how the pieces of my life that I just told you fell together. I can see the big picture. These stories, our stories, don't really have endings, happy or otherwise. Things just keep going on. The pieces overlap and blur together. My story is part of my parents' story, is part of my children's story, is part of many other stories. And of course, the same is true for you. I found a metaphor for this in an essay by Amanda Pape, titled Putting the Pieces Together. She writes, I love jigsaw puzzles. I love that moment of satisfaction when you finally find that 4th corner piece and the smooth feel of the completed puzzle under your hand. But what I love most is seeing the picture emerge. How many times have I stared at the original mess of pieces, jumbled upside down, totally disorganized, and then little by little noticed the patterns. Oh, these are all the boat pieces. Look, they're the same blue. Oh, these, which look brown, must be the pier, and those tan pieces must be the tree trunk. She continues, life has often felt like a jigsaw puzzle, or really like the mess of pieces when you first dump out the box. When I've been faced with multiple decisions at the same time, it's felt as though I'm not sure which piece to fit in first. So little by little, I try piece after piece until one clicks. Then I can recognize the pieces that might fit around it. And eventually the pattern emerges. Not just in the picture I'm creating, but also in the mess of pieces I have still to pick up. The truth is that in real life, we can't see the photo on the cover of the box. We can only place the pieces one by one and see what kind of picture they create. Sometimes we turn out to have chosen the wrong piece and the fit isn't right. And sometimes the picture is wildly unexpected. I've learned to stay present to the slow work of sorting. And for that, I need the reminder of my jigsaw puzzles. The just world that seems totally out of grasp until little by little advances are made. The mess of a life that appears to have no resolution until little by little a new possibility of healing emerges. The path forward that's unimaginable until it's not. So I'll keep sorting, finding the corners, and waiting for the picture to emerge. As Grandpa Jay told the kids in the story, thank you thank you for this opportunity to look back at the picture of my life and to share it with you. And I hope you will find opportunities to share yours with the people you love too in this quiet time. And may you find here in our church family the support we all need right now when life feels such a mess. The future is so hard to see. And may you feel you are not alone as we look forward together, as we look together for a path forward to new possibilities. And now we'll see if we can sing video number 359, When We Are Gathered. Thank you.
When we have gathered for a time of worship and of song, let none forget the joys and griefs that mark each path of life, and thus we reach for those who love. We reach for those who love. For you shall last, and time is wise, and countless seasons turn. So day by day our years increase, until at last by love released, our spirits shine like stars. Our spirits shine like stars.
Thank you. That was better. We'll work out the technical difficulties here. Thank you for joining us, and now we will extinguish this flame. If you have your chalice with you, say the extinguishing words with me if you know them. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you.